Dr. Ross is going to kick us off. Thank you very much and good afternoon.
My name is Beth Ross and I am the acting president here at Emmanuel College, and I'd like to welcome you to another outstanding speaker event sponsored by the Emmanuel Business Collaborative. It's wonderful to see so many members of the Emmanuel community, including students and faculty and staff and alumni and trustees and friends of the college. And thank you all for being here today. The Emmanuel Business Collaborative, as many of you know, engages with a diverse range of Boston area organizations and brings leaders of insight and impact to campus to share their experiences. Discussions highlight Emmanuel's unique position at the crossroads of innovation and responsible corporate citizenship. Today, we are pleased to welcome Doug Rowe, founder and president of the groundbreaking nonprofit retail company Daily Table. Daily Table addresses the issues of food insecurity by offering grab-and-go meals and groceries at affordable prices and in a manner that ensures dignity and economic sustainability. Previously, Doug spent 31 years at Trader Joe's Company, the last 14 years as president, helping grow the business from a small 9-story chain in Southern California to nationally acclaimed retail success story. After leaving Trader Joe's in 2008, Doug went on to become a founding board member of Conscious Capitalism Incorporated, which seeks to create a community of business leaders who embrace the idea that business should be a force for good. I'm especially glad to welcome Anna Porter, principal at the consultancy Starting with Dialogue, who has been instrumental in bringing Mr. Rowe to campus today. I'm also grateful to our Associate Professor of Management, Kelly Basile, who will be leading the conversation this afternoon. And so, Mr. Rowe, on behalf of the entire Emmanuel College community, welcome. It's a pleasure that you're here.
Thank you.
So thank you for being here, Doug. So to start us off, can you tell us a little bit about your own personal background? Where did you grow up, and what was your academic and professional trajectory?
Yeah, sure. First, I got to say I am stunned that there's this many people inside on a beautiful day like this. I've lived here long enough now in Boston to know that there aren't a lot of these days left this year. So I'm honored that you spent a little bit of that day inside here. Yeah, so my personal trajectory was not unlike a lot of people, other than I ended up moving around a lot, not because I was as they would say, an army brat, but my dad couldn't figure out what he wanted to do. Worked here, worked there, then decided that he'd be the first in his entire family's generation to get a college degree. So first he got a bachelor's, and then a master's, and then we moved to Ohio to get his doctorate at Ohio State, and then we moved to Southern California. He taught here, then he taught there, and finally got a tenured position in Cal Poly Pomona and in business, which I thought was the world's most boring subject. And so I ended up going to a lot of high schools, spent time in Oregon, spent time in Ohio, Southern California. After I graduated from college, I was waiting to hear kind of were responses to grad school. I got an undergraduate degree in history. So once upon a time, I actually spoke fluent history. And I was waiting to hear back from some grad school I applied for to go get my master's. And I had a friend who said, hey, listen, while you're waiting to hear back, I'd love to could use you to help us out down in our business. What is that? I said, what's this natural food company that is here in Culver City, which is out on the west part of Los Angeles. And I said, natural food company? Okay. Frankly, this was, early 70s. I hadn't heard about really what made organic, et cetera. And I said, all right, what? He said, well, first I just, if you come down to help work in the warehouse, and, I said, what's working in the warehouse mean? Well, you'd like help unload wheat trucks. I said, I didn't go to college to get a 40 degree to go unload wheat trucks. He said, no, just that, and then also you help with buying and help with this stuff. And I said, well, I'll come down and take a look. I came down filled with a bunch of really young, bright, smart people who just were passionate about food. I thought, well, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. It was kind of cool. Yeah, sure, I'll do this for a while. And a while turned into 3.5 years, and I became Vice President and General Manager. The company actually was founded here in Boston in the late 60s by Paul Hawken of Smith and Hawken. It was called Erewhon. Some of you who've been here for a long time, you remember Erewhon. And so Erewhon happened to have a West Coast warehouse, retail stores, distribution center. And that's why then learned a lot about food. Erewhon got itself into financial challenges. Boston sold the Los Angeles division to someone else. And that company ended up with some challenges because the industry at that time was filled with mom and pop stores from people that had religion about health food and no idea how to run business. So our accounts receivable, which means they owe us money, would run 120 days or so. And to be like, well, we need you to pay us so we can ship you another. Well, ship me the order and I'll give you that one plus half of the one we owe you, sort of. And it was a learning curve for me to suddenly be plopped into this business that was struggling on cash flow because it was also growing. And one of the things I didn't realize is growing businesses need capital. It never occurred to me before because you got to buy inventory at this point. You're selling it before you can get paid for it. You got to pay the people, the farmers, and then you got it. And we ended up getting a cash crunch. At that time, I also started selling to this little company that kind of was wacky. It had a strange name, and they were really interested in natural food, and they sold like alcohol and liquor and stuff, and it was called Trader Joe's. And they had 9 stores, and Joe Colon, Trader Joe, was very interested in healthier, more sustainable, we would call it today, agriculture. I don't think that phrase was exactly coined yet in the mid-70s, but it was more organic, healthy food. So hey, maybe Erewhon could help us in this. And so I started selling to them some product from Erewhon, and separated from Erewhon over some differences with the person who ended up buying the company. Since there's no names to be given, I'll simply say he later was indicted for embezzlement. And my gut sense told me at 25 years old there's something wrong with this guy. Turns out I was right. Didn't know that what it was at the time, just other than I just don't think I want to work with this guy. And so I went to Trader Joe's and said, listen, I'm no longer with Erewhon, but if you ever need anything, I can help in any way. And Joe said, well, you know what? Yeah, we're out trying to figure out how to get into food. We don't have any food in our label. We feel like to survive as a company, we need to, develop our own private label food program as they had done with wine. So at that time when I started there, 70% of all their sales were in wine. And they had a great, truly phenomenal program for delivering value on wine because they had found a loophole in California law that they could legally exploit that allowed them to buy directly from wineries, put it in their label, and sell the exact same wine a winery was selling for $5 a bottle for $1.99. And kind of whisper to the customer, this is really that, And people go, whoa, really? And then buy a case. And so it was actually a great decision. Any way we could do that with food? I said, well, not really. Food's not regulated like wine. It was that time in California, wine was under what's called the Fair Trade Act. I won't bore you guys too much to death. But so that early history ended up with me going to work for him to try to get Trader Joe's into the private label food business. No idea how to do it, but I knew I needed a job. So I figured, sure, I can do that. You're 25 or 6 years old, of course you can do it. And you're better lucky than do it. Yeah.
So I think we can all agree that there's something really special about a visit to Trader Joe's. And so I'm wondering, how is the specialness derived from the mission and vision of the Trader Joe's organization?
Well, not surprisingly, I would say that they're very intricately tied. It's very hard to have a company that has raving fans without a culture that also is healthy and supportive, human, that allows for risk-taking and innovation, etc. And certainly Trader Joe's had that in spades. It was a company that I like to joke and say failed its way to success. It just tried things and tried things and tried things, of which 2/3 of them didn't work out, but 1/3 of them did. And I think probably the number one complaint. So let me ask you guys: the number one complaint at Trader Joe's. Anybody here shop at Trader Joe's ever? Okay, so 1 or 2 of you. So, what would be your number one complaint about Trader Joe's? Yeah.
It'd be the seasonal items.
Seasonal. That's on point of what I would have said, which is discontinued product.
Yeah.
What bothers people more than just about anything else is you fall in love with something, you go back, it's not there again. And it's not just temporarily, as they call it, out of stock. Their acronym is TOS. You know, it's not, no, it's not just that we have a little supply chain issue and we have it back soon. It's like, no, we dropped it. Like, you gotta be kidding. That was the most fantastic whatever it was. And it's like, what do you mean you dropped it? So I used to joke when I was president that, hey, look, my wife says to me, should I just give you my top 10 items and you can just drop them all right now like a Band-Aid, just rip it off. And it's just so painful to go and find, that one's not there. And then 2 weeks later, that one's not there. You know, and I go, but when you're a company that's known to be a treasure hunt, and you're doing something that's fun, and you know, there's a sense of adventure, you end up bringing in new products, because people like to see new and exciting products. I mean, I think we'd agree that part of the fun at Trader Joe's is going and finding new things. Well, the problem is they're not huge stores. So if you kept adding new things and didn't drop stuff, the example I gave to our store person, and by the way, their number one complaint is, can we just stop dropping things? Because customers are like, you know, driving me nuts. I'm taking all the grief every time we drop something. I said, well, it'd be like this. Why don't you start to inhale and just keep inhaling. Now let's see how soon that gets to be painful. You got to exhale. And that's what dropping products is. We're exhaling. We're like, we thought these things would be good. Customers vote with their dollars every day. We're an economic democracy, you know. They didn't work out. And so we're dropping it. And of course, every time the customer hears that, or I tell them that, they sometimes go thoughtfully like, okay, all right, that makes sense. But you shouldn't have dropped that. And I go, hey, believe me, I understand. I've got a, matter of fact, when I retired, it was a little off time, but I retired from Trader Joe's, though I don't ever use that word. I graduated from Trader Joe's because I flunked retirement entirely. But at the big meeting we had, it was in San Diego, and we had about 700 people over there, store management and staff and all that. I gave them the notification, hey, I'm going to be stepping down a couple of months. And so I've got a couple ideas to think what maybe I want to do. A couple of people asked, what do you do next? Don't really know, but I got this one idea. I think it's pretty good. What do you guys think? And I put up on the screen a picture of a Trader Joe's that said Trader Doug's. And I said, I'm going to be next to every Trader Joe's I can get, and I'm going to carry all the discontinued product. And you guys can say when someone says, hey, where's that we discontinued? Oh, you can go next door. Trader Doug's carries that. And I'll just carry all your discontinued product. Well, needless to say, that wouldn't have gone well. But I think culture is, in all honesty, the heart and secret of a great organization. And it's not just for-profit companies, it's non-profit companies. Institutions in business where people interact with each other create cultures. And I used to joke when I give business talks around the country and say, people ask me, what's the secret about Trader Joe's? And I put up on the screen, I said, here's the secret, and it'd be a picture of yogurt. And I go, it's culture. Because culture is that one unique characteristic that every institution has is theirs. It's your DNA. They can copy everything else, but they can't really copy your culture. So organizations that think about culture, spend time, you know, crafting strong, healthy cultures, I think have a better chance at thriving. Because at the end of the day, I had the chance when I was out in Los Angeles, and after 19 years of being with Trader Joe's, and Joe Colon left the business in 1989, I suddenly realized, oh my God, I think this is my career. How did that happen? I thought maybe I was going to go and do something else, and I'm turned out being a grocer of all things. And so I said, maybe I ought to get a little business education because I'm in business. So at that time, Peter Drucker, who was alive and teaching at Claremont University, and for those of you who don't know, he was arguably one of the fathers of management theory certainly in the 20th century. And so I went out and got my executive MBA at Claremont University and Drucker School of Management. And it turns out Peter was a shopper at Trader Joe's, and he and I would have some very interesting conversations over what he thought we ought to be doing. And most of the time I thought he just didn't understand our business. But as time's gone on, I thought he knew a lot more than I thought he did. Funny how it goes. And one of his famous sayings is, culture eats strategy for lunch. Of course, we now know it doesn't wait for lunch. I mean, it has it before breakfast because things happen so fast. But cultures are those intangible parts of any organization that, and I'm spending a lot of time talking about this consciously, because of all the things that matter, in my opinion, in business, it's the most overlooked and underrated. Because you can have lots of strategy classes. And by the way, almost any business sends their people on strategy retreats. No one goes on a culture retreat. you know? And yet it's culture that really makes the distinctive difference in a business. It's really, what for Trader Joe's, for instance, crafted a culture that was tolerant of risk. For instance, Joe Cologne taught me when I was there, and I was in the buying department, put together this plan, created a private label food program for Joe, and then as it expanded, had lots of other buyers and things, that, as he would say, one thing I liked and the other thing I didn't like. One was that the buying department that doesn't make a mistake isn't worth a damn. I thought, that is a really strange way to say things. And he said, it means you're not taking any risks at all. If you're only buying things we know we're going to sell, then you're buying things that are already out there, proven, to which will be the most boring store, in the city, in which, listen, we're not a one-stop shop. We're not a complete store. We need to have products that drive people to us. We need to have destination products. We need to have products where people go, oh, I got to go to Trader Joe's to get my this. And while I'm there, I might as well get the milk, egg, and bread, and whatever it is. And then every now and then I'll stop over at wherever we fill in the blank and get my saran wrap and household cleaners and all the other things that Trader Joe's doesn't carry. Spices that they don't carry and all that stuff. And the other thing I don't like, he said, every buy is just an error corrected by sales. I thought, what the heck? Every buy is a mistake, only corrected by sales? When I became president of Trader Joe's, I finally went, oh my God, I get it. Because every buy until it's sold is just sitting in your warehouse as cash that's sitting there. And like, yeah, until we turn that into sales, this is potentially a mistake. But they were incredibly tolerant of it. So Trader Joe's created a culture among their buying staff and even out in the stores where we're nimble, we're flexible, we're willing to make mistakes, we're willing to try things, willing to do things differently. And I think that's pretty obvious when I had the opportunity to do the business plan on how we're going to grow Trader Joe's outside of California. After I did my Drucker MBA, so John Shields, who was the CEO and a fraternity brother of Joe Cologne, said, all right, hey, you're the new smarty pants guy. How'd you like to do the business plan on how we're going to grow outside of California? I said, sure, I'd love to. He said, well, we're not going to pay you for it. So that's all right. He said, you still got to do your regular job, run buying. I said, yeah, that's all right. And he said, okay. So I said yes, because I then got to go ask every department of the company every question I always wanted to ask. And I had the CEO's blessing, like, hey, whatever Doug asks, you answer. It's like, why do we have this ratio of part-time to full-time? Why is that product expensed and this one capitalized? How long would it take to get your stores normally into a break even? What about this on capital? I got to ask all the things we had out of the buying department. I had no idea. I didn't know anything about it. So it was a great education for me. I mean, I got so much more of it, create this business plan. I think I kind of shocked a few people saying, okay, we're going to go to Boston. And I laughed. Is there anywhere further from Los Angeles? Because if you look at a map of the United States, it was like LA down here, Boston's up here. Like, you couldn't just go to New York. That's not far enough. You had to go, oh, let's go further north. I mean, Portland, Maine doesn't have enough people, so otherwise you would have said that. So I said, no, it's really where we should go. It's a small, big town. It's our kind of customer. It has like 250,000 students that come in every fall, and Trader Joe's thrives on curiosity and education far more than income. So now, two of those happen to be related. Income and education are related, but Joe Cologne used to joke in the early years saying that I did turn my phone off, but didn't turn my Apple Watch off. So in the early years, that the ideal Trader Joe's customer was an unemployed PhD. Well, okay, but then he later figured out that really what it is it's an elementary school teacher who spends their summers traveling in Europe, who comes back and would like to find where they can get some French brie they can afford, because they fell in love with French brie when they were there. And they also liked some of the this and that they saw in Europe. And so anyway, I think that when we looked at doing the expansion and bringing it to the east, it was really about how do we reestablish culture here. Because the secret for Trader Joe's wasn't just to come back and bring their products. And I remember meeting Tom Chappell, who I knew very well, but meeting for dinner out here. And I figured Tom, who was Tom's of Maine, founder, that he'd know all about New England. Only to find out later on that, no, really, he's a kind of a poor Maine guy. But hey, that's all right. I thought he knew all about Boston. So I come back and said, so listen, we're coming back, and he said, well, listen, Doug, what are you gonna do with that logo? What do you mean I'm gonna do with that logo? So it kind of looks like a Mexican restaurant or something. I don't think it's, like, it doesn't really speak grocery. I thought, well, no, we're not changing the logo, Thomas, on every one of our products. Like, okay, what? And he says, and second, it's like, you're not bringing Hawaiian shirts, right? Because, I mean, it makes sense in Southern California, and you're in Hawaii. You feel like a bunch of clowns let out a circle, like out of, like, what are the clowns doing running around out there with their Hawaiian shirts on? I said, well, what would you recommend? And he said, those nice sort of yellow bean embroidered green shirts, you'd have a Trader Joe's embroidered here on it. And I said, I'm feeling ill. Because I like the yellow bean, and I like his embroidered shirts. And the Trader Joe's are closer, was like, oh no, I'm feeling ill. And he said, no, I mean, really honestly, you can't wear Hawaiian shirts. And then finally he said, and by the way, you're not going to try and like sell frozen fish, are you? Because I mean, Boston's like fresh fish. I mean, they'll drive you out of town and you start selling frozen fish. I said, hey, frozen is the freshest fish you can buy if you do it right. And he said, oh, no. And then all that ethnic stuff, El Torito came back to Boston. They got driven out of town. Said, Boston's not really much into ethnic food. And I thought, oh my God, I came away from the dinner so totally depressed. And I thought, what are we doing? And I kind of went, well, we are. We're our culture. We're going to go back. And from my experience, people like good deals and like having fun wherever they are. So we're just going to come be ourselves. And if we need to change our shirts into something else over time, we will. But I even had some long sleeve Hawaiian shirts made just because, hey, it's cold back there. That did look ridiculous. I'm sorry, not doing long sleeve Hawaiian shirts. That looks odd. So we didn't do that. But it was really the heart of the culture that made Trader Joe's successful in the East, and in my opinion, to this day, their success is you can feel it as a customer when you walk in, that these people here seem to be having fun. These people here seem to enjoy their job, and that this is a company that seems to care about customers and care about, good food and clean food, et cetera, et cetera. And that was the heart of what led to their success, in my opinion. Long way to say that, but I really underscore that cultures are really what you should pay attention to for your next job interview. Looking and talking about and going onto Glassdoor and wherever else you can get information on, how do they really treat their people? How are promotions really given? What's the culture of this place? Because it will matter to you far more than how much they wave in front of you for a job offer.
As someone who teaches organizational behavior, that is music to my ears. Thank you for reinforcing that. And Boston also thanks you for being here. So can you tell us a little bit about your decision to transition away from Trader Joe's? What drove that, or graduate from Trader Joe's? What drove that transition? And how did you decide on kind of what you would pursue in your next chapter?
Yeah, well, as the president of Trader Joe's, first as president of Trader Joe's East, as I got to be successful, turned profitable and growing all this, I became we had two presidents, East and West, we kind of merged them and became president nationally. And spent several years of just traveling. I was in charge of all the real estate and all the buying. Last 2 years when I was with Trader Joe's, I started doing an inventory and realized I'm gone 4.5 to 5 months out of the year from my house. And since we had moved back a relatively short period of time, I would call my wife and, how you going? Oh, I'm doing fine. I said, well, you sound like you're a little down, a little lonely. You go, that's not so good. I'm gone all the time, my wife's lonely. This can't be great for a relationship. So I started thinking about that. And then frankly, 9/11 happened. Robert Reed, or whatever his name is, tried to light his shoe on fire on American Airlines flight. And then in London they had the water issue bottle, it's only flying sucked. Long lines. Of course, Trader Joe's, you fly business, you fly economy. So, you stand in line like everybody else, and these long lines for Southwest Airlines, and it was, after a while, I was like, I used to give advice when I go out, because every time we open a store anywhere in the United States, I would go and be there the day before to talk to the staff. Here's who we are. Here's what you can expect from us, and here's what we expect from you. And part of what I did, which sometimes the store management would not appreciate, is say, listen, if after 90 days you are not enjoying yourself, quit. Because life's too short. And second, your team is going to appreciate the fact that if you're, I don't mean that you have to be Pollyanna, everything's great, you just come in dancing to work, but if you're going, oh God, you know, I gotta go back to that, do something else. You know, your team will appreciate it, our customers will appreciate it, you know, you owe it to yourself, etc. His store manager will go, what are you doing? You have an idea how hard it was to get all these people? He said, trust me, 90 days in, if they're not happy, you're going to want them to quit. So I realized, after saying this 20, 30 times a year for several years, I'm not having fun anymore. This constant air travel is a pain in the butt, and it's not fun anymore. And maybe this is for someone younger, or maybe I'm just thinking about, because I also saw a vision of, hey, Trader Joe's is nationwide now. There's some gaps, they're now pretty much filled in, but very successful. And it sort of looked like the horizon was going to be more of the same. More, and that's good, but turns out I actually love challenges. I like doing the things people say you can't do. And so when Joe Cologne told me, no, we can't do this, we can't have a frozen program because people won't be a wide area draw. They won't buy frozen food from us because they don't drive from a distance. And I go, well, I think they will. And that we can't do this, we can't do that, and I find ways to do it. And the same with kind of like, how on earth are you ever going to bring Trader Joe's 3,000 miles away and start up all over again from new? It's like, that can't happen. You know, you're going right into the home of like Star Market and Bread and Circus and stuff. You know, it's one thing to grow up organically. I remember Joe Cologne, the story that I never told anyone before we came here and were successful, because I had to woo like 40, 50 existing employees to come help us like a starter. And you know, we come set a culture with our existing staff who really knew Trader Joe's. And so I kept up a relationship with Joe Cologne. And I went and had lunch with Joe about 3 months before I moved back here. He said, Doug, I hear you're going back east to open Trader Joe's. I said, so I really wish you a lot of luck. I said, well, thanks, Joe. And he said, well, don't sell your house. I said, oh, well, okay. Why did I say you'll be back? I said, why do you say that? He said, did I tell you that last year KKR hired me to go research a chain they could buy and turn into Trader Joe's? No. That would have been nice to know. It's like, no. Yeah, so I did. I went and spent several months researching every single chain, every site, what it was. Came back and said there's nothing to do. They're all either too big, they're all unionized, or they're this or that. There's something that wasn't going to fit Trader Joe's model. And so I said, you'd have to do it yourself. He said, we're not a do-it-yourself, we're an acquire company sort of and turn it into something. He said, but I also told them, there's no one out there and you shouldn't do it anyway. Trader Joe's was created for the culture of the West Coast. It will not survive in the East. And I said, seriously, you know? He said, no. He said, it's, you know, it's a service deli environment. It's a local, you know, this and that. And I said, I don't know, Joe, I think I might disagree with you on that. He said, well, listen, go sell your house. So I thought, oh, geez, do I go back and I'll tell like my key staff, yeah, I met with Joe for lunch and he thinks we're all going to fail. And this was the founder of Trader Joe's, you know. I thought, no, I think I'll keep that to myself for a while. And thank heavens it wasn't the first time or the last time he was wrong. All things said, Joe's a brilliant man, and I don't want that to come across like a negative thing, other than the fact that he was wrong about that. And so I think that for me, it was really about deciding, do I want to keep doing this and someday have it grow from X amount of dollars to 3X? Or is it time to get off and see what else is there I do? And I had no idea what that would be. And I kind of said, okay, let's use the usual rule I use in life, which is what's the no regrets rule? Which would I regret more? Would I regret that I stuck around, did the same thing, got it to be 3X, made whatever amount of money I'm making times 3X? Or would I regret that I didn't go and try something different? And who knows what on earth that would be? And do something different. Because who knows how long you're going to live, who knows how long, what life will bring, etc. And I thought about it and said, second rule is, and is the reason I wouldn't do it because I'm afraid? Because I'm not doing it because I'm afraid, then that's where you got to lean in your life. You got to do the things that challenge your comfort zone. So it's like, well, now there's some things you should be afraid of, rightly so, jumping out of planes without parachutes and things like that. That's I'm not saying you should just go do things that like, I'm really afraid to step out in front of a car. That's really smart, don't do it. But the things that are your comfort zone, the joke goes, you know, if you're not living at the edge of your comfort zone, you're taking up too much space. So those two things pushed me into, even though I was 56 years old, I'm done. And I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I'm done.
So after that, you went through Harvard's Advanced Leadership Institute, and you identified hunger as the major social issue that you wanted to tackle in your next venture. What led you, to the issue of hunger, and how did that kind of turn into the daily table?
Well, I'll tell you, it unexpectedly. So I got this offer to go to Harvard, was putting together in the second year of this fellowship, which was taking old fogies at the end of a career that might still have some gas in the tank, and how can we use and abuse them to go and do something good for society. And we're going to give you the whole run of the university. This was a fellowship run through the president's office, so it wasn't out of Harvard Business School or Kennedy School or anything like that. And at the end of it, you're supposed to stand and deliver on what are you going to do about a social challenge, I thought. I've been a year and a half out of Trader Joe's doing some consulting work and this and that, sitting on boards. And I kind of thought, this sounds interesting. I kind of like that. What are you going to do about a social challenge? So I applied, got accepted, and I had no idea what I'm going to do. I mean, there's so many social challenges to fill in the blank, right? Climate, poverty, education, just fill in the blank. There's so many things we could lean into. So I'm driving down Mass Pike from where I live in Newton into Cambridge, and it's 2010. The Great Recession. Some of you are too young to remember this, but it was the last major economic challenge that America faced. 2009 and 10, when the banking system almost collapsed, where a true recession it was really some tough times. And a billboard on Mass Pike said 1 in 6 in America are hungry. I drove past it once or twice, and I went, that's 52 million people. That can't be right. Like, there's no way. What on earth? 52 million people are not walking around emaciated and starving in America. What is going on here? So I thought, all you need to see what this means. And of course, it started me down a path of some learnings. And the first learning was that, yes, 1 in 6 Americans are hungry. If you take hunger as a definition USDA has for food insecurity, which means that at one point or more in a month, you make the wrong decisions about food because of economics. It can either be you can't buy all that you need, so you're short on food, but more likely it's you're not buying fresh fruits and vegetables, you're not buying clean dairy and protein, you're getting sugary 2-liter bottles of Pepsi on ad for your kids for breakfast, and processed food, because that's what you can afford. So the calories are much cheaper in heavily processed food than they are in. So the first thing was that, oh my God, I get it. Hunger is not a shortage of calories, it's a shortage of nutrients. And the second big aha was when I had a phone call with the CEO of Feeding America, which is the big nationwide lobbying marketing group that supports all the major food banks in the cities around the United States. And I was just trying to understand more about this issue of hunger and this and that. And I said, so what's the biggest problem you face, Vicki? And she said, oh, that's really simple. That right now here in the depths of the recession, we have 38% of the population that qualifies for our services don't use them. I said, whoa, that's a huge number. Is that because they're not aware of it? Is it like a marketing thing? Is it because of language barriers? You don't have enough sites? I started down my immediate, Tim Allen home improvement fix-it list type of personality. And she goes, whoa, slow down, Doug. It's actually much simpler than all that. They're ashamed. They're embarrassed. They won't use a handout. And it's like, whoa. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, sort of that need for dignity. That there are people that are hungrier to keep their dignity than even their health. Was like stunning to me. It makes sense, of course. I mean, there's nothing about what I just said. You would have said, oh, that can't be true. You would have said, oh, okay, yeah, dignity, human dignity. That's so profound. So then it's like, well, how are we going to solve this then? So is there a way to reach these people in a dignified manner? And of course, as the joke goes again from Maslow, if you're a hammer, all the world's a nail. So I spent my life in retail. So of course the answer is retail. And I didn't get there initially. I wanted to solve it in so many other ways. It didn't work out. But I kept coming back to this idea that in a retail setting, it's voluntary exchange. That the whole power differential of the handout flips to where we'd have to earn their patronage, to where we would have to create and have products that were put up for sale, so that it wouldn't just be a handout, here's the goods for you, but instead, we were kind of like the TJ Maxx of food, where we'd go and collect food that was either shorter on code or excess inventory or whatever it was, and offer them really inexpensively, they can come in, choose the product. If they choose it by the way they use it, which is really another important distinction, because often if you just give someone a box of stuff, a bunch of it ends up in the trash if they don't know how to use it or what it is, they don't like it. So by getting them to choose it, then one, we'd have to earn their patronage. It has to be at the right price, it has to be something tasty and delicious or whatever, and it has to be in an environment they like. So we have to treat them well, respectfully, etc. And so Daily Table really came out of an understanding of, oh my gosh, the problem we have is really economic affordability, not so much the food desert idea, which was around in 2010, like they can't find food. It's like, no, turns out very few places in the United States can you not find food. It's that you can't afford it when you get there. And I will say as a little side note, it's just a stunner. Not the same spot, but about 300 yards from where the billboard was that I saw that said 1 in 6 in 2010 are hungry. The billboard the Great Boston Food Bank put up right now is 1 in 3 are hungry in America. And you go, okay, wait a minute. 1 in 6 was a crazy number. 1 in 3? And I would have thought, okay, even I would have thought, and I'm in this all the time, like, wow, that's really? That's a big number. I'm working on and engaged with Foundation to bring Daily Table to inner city Los Angeles right now, and I got the LA County Food Inequity Roundtable report that was from a deep study they had done. Showed last year 22% of people in LA County is huge, by the way, well, like size of half of Canada in population, and this year the number just came out as 30%. So when I saw that 3 days ago, that it was 30% in LA County, suddenly the 1 in 3 on the billboard on Mass Pike made sense. And I know this from our own experience at Daily Table, is that we're all done with the pandemic, right? None of us are wearing masks. Very few of us are wearing masks in here. And we're also done with it. And we're also, that's true of funders, that's true of individuals, because hunger during the pandemic, we knew about that, we reached deeper in our pocket, we gave for hunger, et cetera, because we knew it was a problem. We saw it on the TV news, and there was lines of cars at the Miami or the Houston Food Bank. It is twice as bad now as it was in the depth of the pandemic. And it's because all the support systems have been pulled away. And while the support systems have all been pulled away, guess what else has happened? Highest food inflation in 50 years. And now you hear, oh wait, but food inflation, that's really down now, right? And in your brain you think, oh, it's down. Well, guess what's down? The rate of increase. It's not like, oh, food's come back down, we're cheap again. No. When it went up that high, it's just now the rate of increase is slowed down. It's not like, oh yeah, it went back down again. So now like all the people that are struggling on minimum wage and out there, at the bottom of the pyramid, oh yeah, they can afford food again. Oh no, they can't. Food inflation has created some devastating challenges and challenges for us at Daily Table, because our mission is about delivering affordable nutrition. So we haven't been able to pass on all the increases in food, because if we did, we wouldn't be an affordable nutrition spot. So it's been a challenge. But I will say that, so what got me into this was leaning into what is the nature of this problem. And then, gee, I wonder from my experience in the food industry, is there anything I can do to help? Because at first I was a logistics problem. There's plenty of food. We just got to get to the right spots. And then it turned out, well, not quite so simple. It's, as many of our problems in America, it's a systemic, enmeshed problem. But I will say that what we do at Daily Table, I'm really proud of the team that every day shows up and gets it done, because we are the only grocer I know in America. I had the head of USDA in our store that gave me this idea that if you do a SNAP challenge test in Daily Table, you can make it to the end of the month eating 2,000 calories a day, which is the recommended allowance, of foods you should be eating, because we don't carry soda and candy and cookies. You can find that anywhere, you don't need to go to Daily Table for that. And have money in your pocket at the end of the month. And there's not another grocer in America, other than Trader Joe's, who I love and are very reasonably priced, that can offer that. Again, sorry, long answer, but you get a social entrepreneur in the soapbox, this is what you get.
So with the Daily Table, you really took a business approach to, a nonprofit, to nonprofit work. In an earlier call that we had, described this described this as the messy middle. So could you say a little bit about some of the challenges that you ran into taking a business approach to solve the social?
Yes, well, I would recognize Roosevelt axioms just about anywhere, so she loves to call it the messy middle. And I'd like to say, God, how long is the middle? But it's been messy since we got into it. And your last part of the question, I got somebody stuck on Roosevelt.
So what challenges did you experience kind of using a business approach to solve the to nonprofit work?
Well, first of all, I was struck by the fact that when I was doing this fellowship at Kennedy School, that I'm doing the fellowship and I took a class, audited class at Kennedy School, and found out that between 75 and 80% of every nonprofit's management's time is spent fundraising. And I thought about that and said, wait a minute. If Trader Joe's management had spent 80% of their time not focused on products and services, none of us here would be talking about them because the marketplace would have wiped them out. So that's a pretty bad business model. If management's not focusing on how to get better services and products and delivering stuff, and all they got to do is focus on how to get the money to do those services, isn't there a way we can get money by the delivery of our services? And so that kind of came up right back to the business plan of like, well, if we ran it as a business, as a nonprofit, offer product really inexpensively to customers, if we do things right, put the stores in the parts of the city that are really needing help, then every time a customer walks through the door, buys something that they can afford that's good for them, we will have delivered on our mission. And every time they go through the register, they will have funded us. So, gosh, if we can get that anywhere near equal, we'll be break even. Not so easy to do, because bending the cost curve is kind of the healthcare issue, the way of phrasing it. But bending a cost curve on nutritious food to compete with junk food is pretty tough. Very tough. And so, and to be profitable at it. So we are close. Before COVID hit, we had our first store was in the black for the whole year as a store, as a four-wall business unit. We still had G&A overhead we had to cover. But then COVID was really tough on us as a brick and mortar retailer. And it was tough on us also because supply chain disruption. So a lot of the companies, Chobani, Danone, Stonyfield, and others that we just easy names, that brand names you recognize, that would have excess inventory and say, hey, listen, we got yogurt, it's only got 17 days left on its code. We can't ship it to Stop and Shop or Trader Joe's or anyone because it's too short to go through their system. Well, they'll either donate it or we'll sell it to you for $3 a case, you know, like 50 cents for a quart of yogurt that still has 2 weeks on it. Like, well, yeah, we'll take that. That'd be great. That all evaporated. It's like suddenly grocers are going, yeah, you got yogurt, we'll take it, whatever the code is, because supply chain was so disrupted and was so short. Like, you got inventory of anything, we'll take it. And so our cost of goods sold, to be a little technical, if it goes, you know, we talk cost of goods sold, to put it, cut to the chase, if I sell something for $1, what did that cost me to buy that product? And so for us, it would run around 65 cents on average, pre-pandemic. Got to 87 cents during the pandemic to stay in stock and have that. Well, at 87 cents, it doesn't leave you much for rent, payroll. And by the way, we had chosen years ago to decide we're hiring from the community. We're hiring people that are the people that are our target audience who are here to serve. We better be paying them a living wage. So even though we're a nonprofit, we're now at $17.20, whatever it is in Boston, and $17.69 in Cambridge or whatever, with a really good benefit package. Because how can you pay people minimum wage and talk about trying to raise the well-being of a community? So when you've only got 13% left to cover your rent and payroll when you do pay living wage and all the other things, it really deepens the hole. So good news is cost of goods sold has come down. We're like in the low to mid 70s on its way down, but food inflation is still tough. And then, so I think that as far as running it as a business, we do run it every day as a business. What makes that tough is in the space we're in, the tax code doesn't support it. So the tax code is designed around giving enhanced deductions, it's called Section 170 in IRS, to get wonky, where if you're a grocer or a restaurant, and you got excess inventory, you got some product that's still good, but maybe it's out of your code date, you can pull it off the shelf, donate it to a food bank, and you don't just get, like if that yogurt costs you $2, you don't just get a $2 write-off. If you're selling it for $3, you get $2.50. You get 50% of your lost margin. So you'd be nuts to throw it out. you can donate as much of it as you can, which is brilliant. It's one of the instances where tax policy really supports the right behaviors in society. The problem is when they did this 23 years, 25 years ago, as the tax code was written, there was nothing but food banks, and no one ever thought about, hey, what would happen if a nonprofit grocer came along? And so they're going to sell this product to customers, because guess what? It turns out 40% of them aren't going to take it otherwise. Oh yeah, we don't cover that, because in the code it says you only get the enhanced deduction if no money ever exchanges hands all the way through the whole cycle. And so that got to be a bit of a challenge for us. The other side is many funders still can't quite figure out what box do you fit in. Like we do job creation, we recover food, so we're kind of helping reduce the amount of food waste that goes to a landfill, so we're doing environmental things. But you're also fighting hunger, and it's like, well, you cover 4 or 5 of these boxes, but it's like, you don't really fit any one of our, so it's taken a while to get them like, yeah, but it's good that we cover 4 legs of the stool here, and things like that. So yeah, I mean, it's, anytime you're different, the other side of it is that because we're different, you can't just lump onto, like, we're the Newton food bank. There we go. Oh, instantly, I know what a food bank is. You're that. It's like your daily table. What's that? And I would say 90% of our customers have no idea we're a nonprofit. We have no interest in telling them. We talk about a community market. We're here to create jobs and have fresh food, affordable, etc. Because we first started with banners that said nonprofit. I can't tell you how many people came in and said, "So who owns this place?" They go, "Well, nobody owns this place." "Well, I saw you on TV. You're the owner." I said, "No, I'm not the owner. Nobody owns it. Somebody must own this stuff." I said, "Well, no, actually, no. I mean, the organization does it. So I can just take stuff?" "No, of course you can't just take stuff." "No, then somebody does own it." I said, "The organization owns it." "Well, who owns the organization?" You started these long conversations realizing, why are we talking about being a nonprofit? It's irrelevant to a customer. They can care less. And so that was one of the obstacles too. You go, well, our business model exactly is this. It's like, I'm uninterested. Like, what's your price of apples? Or, you've got chicken breast for how much? And in the case of what we do as a business, we also have a kitchen commissary that cooks fresh meals every day and then sells them for cheaper than fast food. And I think for a lot of people, it's just they want to know, how's it taste? And are my kids going to like it? Instead of us telling them, oh, by the way, we had Harvard School of Public Health that help us set up the nutritional guidelines so it's not high in sodium. Instantly they go, oh, it can't taste good. I'm not going to eat that. Like, oh no, it didn't say it's low sodium. It just said it's normal amount of sodium in our soups and in our entrees. And by the way, you can always add salt if you want. I mean, that's easy to do. You can't take it out. So we learned a long time ago, don't lead with any of that. Just lead with it's fresh, delicious, convenient. Yeah.
So I want to also just make sure that I get a chance to ask you about conscious capitalism before I open it up to the audience for questions. So as if you were not busy enough launching Daily Table at the same time you're a founding board member of Conscious Capitalism. And from my understanding, it seeks to create a community of leaders that really embrace the idea that business should be a force for good. So can you tell me a little bit more about how conscious capitalism works and how it delivers on societal impact?
Well, Conscious Capitalism is a nonprofit organization that was founded back in, incorporated in 2011 or 2012. And I was the first CEO for about 6 years. The idea is one that's not going to strike anyone I think is radical, and that is business ought to be a force for good. It shouldn't just look to its shareholders as the value creation. And so one of the most damaging statements ever made was Milton Friedman's that the sole purpose of a corporation is to maximize shareholder return. And I know Peter Drucker would say that that was the most damaging comment ever made about capitalism. Sadly, a lot of people believe that. Because at the end of the day, I happen to believe that Peter Drucker's was more right as far as the definition of notes, which is that the only valid definition of the purpose for a business at the end of the day is to create and keep a customer. Well, the way you create and keep customers is create value for them. And so conscious capitalism would say, let's take a stakeholder model as compared to a shareholder model where you've got customers, you've got employees, you've got communities, you've got the environment, you've got shareholders. All of them should win. And that I think there's a lot of research coming out, and I've seen some from McKinsey, Goldman Sachs has some stuff, demonstrating that those businesses that have a sense of purpose outperform those that don't. People that take long-term outperform those that take short-term. So what's happened in America in the last 30 years particularly is what I'll call the calendarization of business. Sitting on two publicly traded boards right now, I can tell you the pressure on the board for your quarterly results and your guidance that you give Wall Street, and then making sure you exceed that by a little bit, is a game that shouldn't be played. It's not helpful to really anyone other than the Wall Street wonks. It's not helpful for the business. It's not helpful to have them pay attention to create value for the customers or the communities. And so that calendarization drives us towards short-term decision making. And short-term decision making is what gets us in trouble. And by the way, it's not just business. All you have to do is look at our political environment now for short-termism. Oh my God, we can't fund anything more than 6 weeks, and that takes an act of God to have happen, you know? So it's like, I guess there I shouldn't complain. There's a whole quarter that a business gets to look at before they have to report out and get judged again in the marketplace, because Congress can't seem to go more than 6 weeks without a complete meltdown. Okay, let's see here, get off that soapbox. So I think conscious capitalism is also around, there's really 4 core things about a business. One is your sense of purpose. That purpose is more than just making money. I mean, making money is great. By the way, profit, I'm all for it. If you're a for-profit business, it's the air you breathe. You know, without it, you're gone. So, I mean, yes, you may get a bunch of capital to start you out, but if you don't turn profitable, you're gone. It's just a question of when. So, profit's essential. It is the air we breathe. But another example that would be given is that, look at, in a way, we can look at ourselves and say, without food, you know, we can last maybe, I don't know, 20, 30 days, something like that. Without water, a couple of days. Without air, just minutes. So in a way, you can say, well, biologically, we exist to breathe. You know, because without it, we're dead. But I hope none of you until this moment thought about breathing today. Like, I'm going to get as much air as I can get. You know, and if I have to take a little bit from someone else, I will. But it's a zero-sum game out there on air. And I'm going to grab all I can get. So I think that in the same way, air is what allows us to live and thrive and have a higher purpose. Go about doing the things we do in our life. I think profits are what allow businesses to fulfill their purpose around whatever goods or services, whatever values they're creating for their communities and for their customers. And so that's one. The other is, of course, a culture, we talked about already, cultures that are around, or I'll say, are people-oriented. And that's not to get too squishy and all this and that. I mean, you can still be meritocracy and drive people hard, but it should be around the focus that someone gets to bring their whole self to work, and that at the end of the day, people matter. And I think it was Arthur Brooks actually said something at a conscious capitalism event we had that I liked. I'll see if I can say it in the right way. He said, most businesses use people and love profit. Great businesses love people and use profit. And I think that there's some wisdom in that. And so then, of course, the other one is that, you know, you need to have kind of what I'll call it a model. You can call it stakeholders, a little wonky, but the idea is that we're here to serve a lot more than just our investors. We're here to also serve and have focus, bringing value to our customers and our employees, et cetera. And that's really critical. And those are kind of the heartbeats of conscious capitalism. And of course, I know, you know, the question always comes up, is that really practical? Does that work? And the answer is that, yes, it does. There's examples all over the place of companies that do it. Now, is anyone out there doing it perfectly? No. Any more than we as human beings are perfect. You know, and I like to joke with conscious capitalism, listen, there aren't any churches around I know that only let saints in. Because if they are, they'd have very few in the audience. So we're not going to be a movement that only allows the people that are really pure and just doing everything exactly right. You know, no, it's like directionally. Would you like to have a little less negative impact on the earth? That's great. Would you like to be able to have a little more human-centric culture and outcome? Would you like to have a sense of purpose and that inspires your team and inspires your investors and inspires that? These are all things like, well, here's how we can help you directionally move that way. And it doesn't matter if you're here or if you're here, it's about the direction you're headed in, as Aldo Holmes, I think, once said. It's not so important where you are as the direction you're headed in. And I'd say that's true for almost every business and for those of us in our own lives. It's not so much where you are, it's like, are you trying to be a little better today than you were yesterday? Trying to learn a little more? Trying to be a little better of a human being? I think the same thing applies to business.
Well, I could ask you questions all day, but I want to give a chance for some of our audience members.
As a successful entrepreneur yourself, what advice would you give anyone looking to start their own business or also grow that business as well?
Well, there's tons of advice. First of all, know that you need to stay nimble, keep learning. No matter what your first iteration is, it will be your iteration. Almost all innovation is really just iteration. Almost no one comes out of the box with their final, that was it, you know? And hence I'm on iPhone 15 or whatever it is, right? It's not like, we're on iPhone 1, that's the best, that's it, we innovated, it's like done. On to the next thing. It's like, no, we keep iterating. So I think that one is come with a mindset that will be around, I gotta keep iterating, I gotta keep every day being better in some way. And that can be just operationally, it can be product, it can be the way in which you craft behavioral training and development for your staff. It's up and down, that'd be one. The other is that, personally, I think that know you're in it for the long run. And hopefully not just want to build to flip. Like, I really like to be an entrepreneur because I want to get rich. That doesn't turn out successful for many people. Almost all the entrepreneurs you read about weren't because I really wanted to get rich. It's like, I had this incentive, or this desire I couldn't put away that I wanted to do this or do that or do this. And so I think it's really around making sure that you're in it for the longer run, that you're there to, you know, to create some value in one way or the other. Be clear about it, be value. At the end of the day, new businesses succeed or fail when, one, they're able to create and keep customers, and then do it efficiently. And which is the other side of it. Oftentimes, we talk a lot about the sexier parts of purpose and innovation stuff, and forget that operations really do matter. And being able to run an efficient and effective and be a good operator is really important. Of which, you know, this comes from learning and learning and learning. Of which I think it's really important as an entrepreneur to get, if you can, put together boards that have advisors, that are mentors, that can lean in and, not that they have the answer, but maybe they've got some experience you don't have, that can, you know, at the end of the day, help prevent some common mistakes.
Thank you. Thank you. Other questions?
Are you a student?
I'm a senior.
Sorry.
I am too.
First, thanks for stressing the importance of operations. I teach operations management, so I told you guys, right? So a couple things. First of all, this messy middle business model for Daily Table, do you think it's scalable? Like this can be replicated in other parts of the country?
It's a great question. I, of course, will say, of course it can. We'll see. The real problem for most nonprofits is staying funded. Because you may think that nonprofits don't compete in the marketplace. Like, who gives Trader Joe's permission to exist? The customer. I mean, you know, they open a store, if they come in. The customer in a voluntary exchange marketplace is what validates their right to exist. Well, what gives a nonprofit the right to exist? And it turns out they're in a very competitive marketplace, and that's your philanthropic funder. Because there's 1.45 million nonprofits in the United States, and they're all looking for money. So who gets the money is many times who will win, because the average nonprofit doesn't make any money, it loses money. And so for us, getting ourselves to where we can get our business units break even, and then only be able to have to fundraise for our G&A and our kitchen subsidy, because we subsidize some of the meals that we sell. We have a meal we make that's fresh, that's a chicken with brown rice and vegetables, it's like a 16-ounce meal, it's $1.99. It's one of the best values on nutrition anywhere in America. And it doesn't cost us $1.99, it costs us more than that to make it. So we subsidize that. Well, that's not a very good business model if you're a for-profit, right? So we have to fundraise to help subsidize some of what we do in our kitchen. What I'll say is, compared to the other solutions to hunger, we're a far more economically viable solution. Food banks have zero return on your investment in this, not on impact, but on financial contribution. So for us, part of what has attracted the funding we've received to date is the fact that every one of your philanthropic dollars gets an instant 2-for-1 match on impact. Because we cover currently, post-COVID, or in the depths of recovering from COVID, we cover 2/3 of our expenses. We were at 75% when COVID hit. So we hope to get back to 75-80%. If we can get back to where we're doing 75-80%, then I think fundraising for the other 20 becomes a lot easier. Ideally, you'd be in a world where you could say, if we got to break even, then it's truly scalable. Because then it's truly, all you do is give us the CapEx to open a store, and we'll give you a perpetual return on impact value, and we'll just open 500 of these things, and we just need to find the money to open 500, and then after that, we're not going to ask society for another nickel. Would be a wonderful argument. We haven't found how to do that yet. But we're not that far.
Can I sneak in one more? So you mentioned the tax code and how that helps
Yeah.
people that want to donate money, right? So that's the use of a policy to kind of increase the bang for the buck. And then you also mentioned SNAP, people coming in using SNAP. Is there an opportunity to lobby, and I don't know exactly how this would look, but that people that use SNAP in like places like Daily Bread get a bonus on their SNAP to encourage folks to go to this place?
Yeah, so before I did Daily Table, I met with a guy named Ray Goldberg. Ray Goldberg taught at Harvard Business School in agribusiness he actually coined the phrase agribusiness back in the 1950s. He taught at Harvard Business School and in the Kennedy School continuously since the mid-50s. He's now a professor emeritus. So I went to him when I was in my fellowship and said, hey Ray, I got some ideas, I want to bounce them off you. So one is, look, SNAP is now an electronic benefit transfer. So you have the ability to capture all that data. So instead of trying to figure out what to do, why don't we just reward those people that are buying smart things with it? Because sadly, SNAP covers Pepsi and Dorito chips also, which makes zero sense. We realize it doesn't cover a rotisserie chicken or a warm soup on a hot tray, you know, because hey, those are ready to eat. But by God, have all the Pepsi and Coke and Doritos you want. So it's like, yeah, a wonderful government subsidy of diabetes and obesity. But so now I'm totally distracted by myself. I got into a long argument with the head of USDA on that. I think that my first idea was, well, why don't we reward them with an extra 10% or 20% if they have X percent of fresh fruits and vegetables? He said, Doug, that's a great idea. How much do you know about the USDA? I said, well, I know it's a monstrously large organization. He said, God, I do see you spend the rest of your life trying to, work that through the USDA. I thought, okay, well, I got a second idea. What if on the enhanced deduction? The enhanced deduction is nutrient blind. You get the same deduction for giving donuts to a food bank as you do kale. That makes no sense. Because it's not like the average person out there is starving on calories. They're not. They really aren't. They're starving by fresh fruits and vegetables. Why don't they give them 75%? Why don't we form a revenue neutral tweak to the enhanced deduction where they get 75% of the lost margin for fresh fruits and vegetables and 10% of it for their sugary, junky stuff. I said, God, that's a great idea. What do you know about IRS tax credits? I know nothing. I said, yeah. He said, you know what, you should really do what you know. I said, well, in hunger, what do I do? He said, no, you know retail. I thought, yeah, no, I don't see any way to it. And this is why I hadn't thought of Daily Table yet. And because I was all excited about those other ideas. And I still think they're good ideas. So I don't know anything about the USDA's workings. I don't know anything about tax code and how to do it, lobbying costs. What I do know, now having spoken to Jim McGovern a number of times, Tom Belsack, and the head of USDA's FNS, which is the Food Nutrition Service, they don't know how to get it done. It's like, it is a labyrinth that is like, oh my God, you're hip-deep mud and no one can move. It really is, just look at what happens with Farm Bill. You know, it's a disaster. So the answer I will say is I'm delighted that Daily Table was the first retailer in Massachusetts that allowed double-up food bucks, which is what was used at farmers markets. If you're on SNAP, you go to a farmer's market, and you can get 2 for 1 for fresh fruits and vegetables. For 5.5 years now, you've been able to, in Daily Table, come in and get all your fresh and frozen fruits and vegetables and get a 50% discount if you're on SNAP. And so, by the way, we've had Freeman School, tough postdoc at Freeman School, Sarah John, do a doc thing on this and went into all of our data, 250,000 transactions, to demonstrate it had a significant and real increase of fresh fruits and vegetables when it was implemented. 27% increase in consumption, which if you're a nutritionist is dramatic.
All right, well, I want to thank everybody for coming today and acknowledge Anna Porter, who introduced us to Mr. Rudd, and all of you for joining us. It was really, really interesting, and really ran for Emmanuel College. You know, this is what the School of Business here at Emmanuel is all about, is taking the mission of the Sisters of Notre Dame and putting it into the business world. So thank you again. Thank you for Dr. Basile for moderating and for all of you for coming. Have a great night.